Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Roberts, and as always, I am your good friend and host. Today's a big day. Dog Pile is somewhere on Highway 82 right now, headed to Starkville. Then some books are going to be transferred to Jackson. I got to go down there and spend the weekend signing those, but we will have some book signings, and I'm posting those on social media kind of in advance, and it's already been being promoted by some other people, but at long last, Dog Pile is a real thing. And it's been one of these labors of love for me. Like I always wanted to write this book. I always hoped we win a national championship, and I wanted to be able to document the journey for future generations. And you guys have been so awesome to me over the years. I can't begin to say thank you enough. I really can't. And, listen, here's the deal. And I was just talking to my best friend from back home. His birthday was yesterday. So shout out to Ernie Turner. We grew up together, broke as the Ten Commandments in many respects. He more so than me. And, I think about those things all the time. It's like, I think about some of the risks that I've taken in life as a young person and really put myself in harm's way. And now here we are, book number 5, guaranteed to be the best-selling book in the state of Mississippi. And we've already sold thousands of books and thousands of orders. And there's a real possibility that we're going to run out of books before the second printing arrives. All these supply chain issues and things like that. I mean, it's like people are like, hey, we want to get, so many thousand books. Well, we can do half of that now, and then we'll do half later, and then we'll do this. And so there's a lot of urgency with the book. And, it's incredible to think that there's so many people that, want to sit and visit with me for a few minutes and talk Mississippi State athletics. And it means an awful lot to me. It really does. And I get emotional about this thing sometimes. There's sometimes I'll be like at a red light or something, and I'll think, is this really my life? Is this really, after all the things that I've been through and the things that I've overcome, it's really a success story about the recovery community in many respects. And I'll take a lot of credit for that too. I won't take all the credit, but I'll take a lot. God provided me with a second chance, and I took full advantage. And now here we are, and I get to live my dream. And when I moved to Starkville, and I remember I got, my first media sessions, that sort of stuff. You start going to that stuff, and it's like, oh, I get to interview, Dak Prescott and Dan Mullen whenever I want to, and they don't even ask me for an ID when I go to a baseball game. And, I just think to myself, it's like I'm living my dream. This is what I always wanted to do. Well, I wanted to be a rock star. That didn't work out. But, but here I am. And I'm never going to go cover the Miami Heat or the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't have any aspirations to do those things. I get the opportunity to cover, the greatest university in the world's athletic department, and that is something that I never take for granted. And I say all the time, in many respects, we kind of cover Mississippi State on Mississippi State's terms, and I always want to be a partner to the university as we can. I don't like being hypercritical. I'll tell you the truth. If I don't like something, I'll tell you. If we're not playing well, I'll tell you. But I'm supportive of the university, and I'm supportive of all you guys, because I am for Mississippi State, and I am for everybody else that is for Mississippi State. And so when I sat down to begin to write this book about the national championship, I did a lot of soul searching, did some praying. I was like, this is the book in many respects that people have been waiting their entire lifetime to read. And while we all experience that, it'll be nice to have all of that, those quotes as things as they unfolded. And I think it's important to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And I'm just so honored and privileged to have been able to write this book. And I can't wait to hold it in my hands. And I'll tell you what's funny. It's the longest book I've ever written. So, it's a couple dollars more than usual. We got color pictures. I had some people in the athletic department that reached out and said, hey, are you really writing this book? I said, yeah, I'm really writing this book. I've been preparing for it forever. But yeah, I'm going to write this book. And they said, we're going to have color pictures. Do you want color pictures? Well, yeah, okay, so we'll get color pictures. So it's going to be, color pictures, behind-the-scenes interviews, a lot of things. I kept every interview that I did the entire year. Every interview from start to finish, from Arlington, Texas to Omaha, Nebraska, I kept every single interview and used a lot of those quotes, and then had a chance to go back after the fact and interview a few other people, interview them about what it all means to all of us, and wanted to do some other things. Like I wanted to kind of have like a fan chapter, but the book was so substantial, we just couldn't do it. We just couldn't fit all that stuff in, and I hate that, I really do. But at the end of the day, It's our collective story. It's our collective experience, and I can't wait for you guys to read this book. I absolutely can't. And there are times, listen, I kept hearing about delays, and I'd get an update from the publisher, and it's like, oh, we're hopeful we're going to be able to do this, and then things don't work out. And, there's some real problems in our country right now with the supply chain, and I know some of that's a global problem as well, but, a lot of it is tied back to a lack of work ethic within our country. And I think we've learned a lot about ourselves as a nation in the last couple of years. And, one of the things, too, I want to change gears a little bit, kind of along those lines, though. One of the things that I think we need to do is normalize being nice to people that show up for work. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you go through the drive-through and it's long and there's a delay. Well, it's not the fault of those people that came to work. It's the fault of the people that quit. It's the fault of people that didn't come to work. I mean, sometimes I'll go to a local restaurant or whatever, and it's like, oh, we're closed today for lack of staffing. Well, it's not those people's fault that got up and got dressed up and came to work. It's the fault of those that didn't want to. And so at the end of the day, I've been personally impacted by that in a much grander scale with this book. And I could give you the full details behind this national paper shortage as I could as it was relayed to me. But, the more people that I talk to, it's like, hey, this is happening for us. This is happening for you. Go in some stores and there's barely anything on the shelves. And you think, well, this is something that's happening somewhere else. No, it's happening right here. And there are a lot of people out there working hard, doing a great job, probably doing more than they ever have to try to keep the country running. And so my hat's off to those folks. So everybody that gets up and turns up for work, thank you. Whether I solicit your business or not, thank you for your part in all of this. And, we got some more books on the way. It'll probably be a couple months before they get here, probably closer to 3, probably be May before we get more books. And so in the event that you have waited and you don't buy a book here in the next few weeks, if for some reason, if it runs out and we sell out, just be prepared. More is on the way. And then you know what? We're going to keep printing them, and we're going to keep printing them, and we're going to keep printing them, and we're going to keep printing them. We're going to make sure that everybody that wants a copy of Dogpile is going to get a copy of Dogpile. You're going to have the ability to purchase that. Yeah, everybody's excited, as you can tell. So here's the deal. By the time you guys are listening to the show, I'll be with the books. They're going to be offloaded here probably in the next hour. And I want to thank Colton and his buddies for helping everybody else get those things handled. A lot of people involved in this process to ensure that these books get to market that don't get a lot of thank yous. And so allow me to do that now. Paul T. Brown and the full crew there do a great job. And there are a lot of people involved, man, that played a part in this, that their names are not on the book. It's my name on the book, and so I take a lot of the criticism and the credit for it. But there are a lot of other people out there that are kind of behind the scenes that you would never know, that do some amazing things to make me look good, even when maybe I'm not. And I appreciate them. And, this writing process has been much different than anything else that I've written because of the deadlines. It's like we wanted to get it done in time for Christmas. I did my part. The publisher did their part, and it didn't work out the way we had hoped. But now it's here, and you guys will have a chance to read it before Mississippi State takes the field again. So that's kind of a cool thing, too. I think it's a good transition into college baseball season. But one of the things that I have learned through this whole process is that you can do the best you can, and you don't always get the best outcome because other people don't do their part of it. And a lot of times they're held hostage by the fact that they don't have the work staff to get it done. And it's easy to get mad about that and try to find somebody to blame. But the reality of it is all we can do is our part. And you can hold people accountable as best you can. But the reality of it is getting mad about it doesn't really change anything. And something my grandmother used to say, you can get glad in the same pair of pants you got mad in. And so I've just been very grateful. And I knew this day at some point would come, even though it seemed really long at times. It's like, it's going to be the push it back and push it back and push it back, and it drives you crazy. But the reality of it is now they're here. Now they're here. It's a big day. It's a big day for me. I think it's a big day for Mississippi State college baseball fans, and look forward to you guys having this. And so many of you reached out after I read the intro on the Boneyard on Wednesday. You read the intro to the book to you guys, and people are like, hey, Steve, can you read us some more? Well, no, not going to do that yet. But I've considered, some of that in the past, when things get a little bit slack and maybe we get into sometimes we don't have as much stuff going on. Maybe we'll have story time with Steve on the show. Maybe I'll read some excerpts from some of the books, maybe that you're unfamiliar with, and I'll give you, kind of some maybe some behind-the-scenes stuff, maybe some editor's notes or some things like that, perhaps some details that didn't make the book. But I was exhaustive in my writing approach to Dogpile. Probably made a mistake or two. I don't think so, but you never know. You never know. It's like you go through it over and over and over again, and it's kind of like, when you're in your house and everything, and like you think, hey, I need to put that up, and then eventually it kind of becomes part of the scenery. It's like the more times that you read and edit something, when you don't have fresh eyes, you kind of begin to assume things are true. And so I went back and did, tremendous amount of fact checking to ensure I had it right. But you know what? My best efforts, I still may have made a mistake. So please don't judge me too harshly if I did. Again, I don't think we've got anything in there. But if we do, shoot me an email, let me know, and we'll research it, make sure who's right, and we'll fix it in subsequent printings. But I believe this is going to be a book too. Like with Flim Flam, a lot of people bought it and then passed it around. I think this is a book that you're going to want to hang on to. I don't think you're going to want to buy this and then let it leave your possession. I think this is something that you'll always want to keep on the bookshelf, and then years from now, you'll think, you remember we won the national championship? Yeah, well, I just happen to have the story. And I did my best to quote every player. Didn't get everybody because there were some people that we never got from media and I didn't have access to. But, there were a lot of players in there that weren't, your headliners. Guys like Drew McGowan, guys like Braylon Skinner, they're quoted in the book because of the roles they played in certain ball games. And that's the great thing about this team is we talk about Rowdy and TA all the time, and there's the iconic picture that the Hell State Video Group put out of those two guys walking off the field after a super regional win over Notre Dame. And it's like, that's okay. Well, those guys kind of defined the team. But the best thing about this team is it was a different hero every night. I mean, you can run through the roster, and you can find a big moment. I mean, who would have thought in a million years that the name Tanner Leggett would live in infamy? Or, not infamy, but in Tanner Leggett would be a legendary name for us. That's a name you're always going to remember. Think about Gene Morgan, right? I mean, like if you weren't alive back then or you watch those games, you remember the name Gene Morgan because of the moment against Texas, right, where he's hitting the ankle with a line drive. And sadly, that's the memory people have of Gene, despite the fact that he was one of the best starting pitchers in the Southeastern Conference, if not the country. But Tanner Leggett, that's the name. Tanner Leggett, one of the biggest hits in the history of Mississippi State baseball, the hit that sends us to the National Championship Series. And so he's quoted. Braylon Skinner hit that monstrous home run at LSU. He's quoted. Drew McGowan, obviously a guy that had some big hits for us earlier in the year. He's quoted. Houston Harding. I mean, I did my best to get everybody in there. And there is one exhaustive chapter that I want to share with you. I'm not going to read it to you today. But there is one chapter that I did a ton of fact-checking, and basically it's the history of Mississippi State baseball in a chapter. We start in our infancy in the 1800s, and we go up through the Paul Gregory era. That's chapter 1. And then we pick up with Ron Polk. I had a chance to sit down with Coach Polk, talk about everything about how he got to Mississippi State, and there are some things about Ron Polk that you probably don't know that are included in that book. I learned a lot from talking to Polk. I've shared with you guys this before, maybe you've forgotten. Ron Polk almost didn't take the job. How about that? He talks about that at length. But he almost didn't take the job, and he explains why. Can you begin to imagine where we would be today as a college baseball program? And we talk about the butterfly effect, like little things that happen. Well, if Ron Polk doesn't take the job, then guys like Rafael Palmeiro and Will Clark don't come to Mississippi State. Guys like Jody Hurst and Bobby Reed, they don't come to Mississippi State. John Cohen doesn't come to Mississippi State. And, of course, John's now your athletic director. Well, then John's not your AD, then chances are Chris Lamonis doesn't get hired. So there are all these things you look back in hindsight, these huge moments that at the time seemed like a big deal but proved to be an even bigger deal. When you look at the pathology of our program, you look at our legacy, and a lot of it goes back to us hiring Ron Polk. A guy that was totally obsessed with college baseball, totally obsessed with getting better, totally obsessed with making Mississippi State a national contender. One of the first guys to ever really recruit nationally in college baseball. He goes up and gets Bruce Castori out of New York and goes and gets Mark Gillespie out of Omaha, Nebraska. People like that. And I've interviewed both of those guys. Both of those guys are in Alpha Dogs. And those are the things that I think about. It's like, we look back and I don't think that we fully appreciate how innovative Mississippi State baseball has been and the impact that Mississippi State has had on the game of college baseball. Even before the national championship, there were things that we did and commitments that our administration made to college baseball that was really the forerunners for what we enjoy today. And I have a lot of respect for LSU baseball fans, more so than the football fans. They're a little less obnoxious, I guess. Love the people from Baton Rouge. I lived there a long time. Made a lot of friends down there. And I had so many of the old-timers, the guys that were LSU baseball fans prior to Skip Bertman that always wanted LSU to be something special, and it wasn't. They owe a lot to Mississippi State and Ron Polk. And they admit that. This new generation of LSU fans, they have no idea about the history of their baseball program. And I talk about that also in Dog Pie. I interviewed Ben McDonald, for an article earlier this year. Quoted him some in the book, too. Matter of fact, Ben is blurbed on the back cover of the book. But we talked about that, how Skip changed things. And, of course, the relationship between Polk and Skip that actually goes back, decades. But to hear the LSU old-timers say, they said, hey, you guys at Mississippi State, you guys are the godfathers of SEC baseball. And in many respects, the godfathers of college baseball. And so when we walk around and we have our chest puffed up a little bit about college baseball, it's not just because of the fact that we've won the national championship. We were a program and a university that was committed to college baseball long before other people were, because there was a vision in place. People understood, hey, we're good at baseball. We're good for around here. And then we kind of began to expand, and of course we joined the SEC and the infancy of the SEC, the Southern Intercollegiate Athletics Conference. And we figured, we're not just good for around here, we're pretty good regionally. And then we get a chance to go play on a national stage, and we figure out, hey, we can make a go of this thing. We can be a national power, and we are a national power. And I know some of our self-loathing fans didn't really accept that until we won the national championship, but we have. And now we never have to hear about that crap ever again. We never, ever, ever, ever have to hear about, well, State can't win the big one, because we have, and we're not done. This is just our first national championship, not our only national championship. Let's thank our good friends at Bulldog Burger Company, national champs in their own right. Great restaurant quality hamburgers for sure. And I love the place. I love the atmosphere. I love the pricing. I love the portions. I love the people. I love the fact that I can go in there and get more for my money. A lot of people out there that are cutting back on you. They're charging the same price and cutting back on the portions. Not the case at Bulldog Burger Company. You're going to get more than you pay for. And the quality of the meal is outstanding. Have the spring rolls for your appetizer. You'll be glad you did. It'll make you and everybody around you better looking. It's science. Trust the science, as they say. It's just a scientific fact. The spring rolls make you better looking. How do you think I've been able to maintain this youthful appearance? I have the spring rolls. On top of that, too, you can have the BLT salad. You get it fried or frilled. I did it again. Fried or grilled. Maybe that becomes a thing. I don't know. But the reality of it is they have something for everybody there at Bulldog Burger Company. Maybe you're not feeling like a hamburger, but you can go have the wings. You can have those Sloppy Joe sliders. You can have the sweet heat chicken sandwich. 3 great locations to serve you. University Drive here in Star Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, and the brand new one. Not really so brand new anymore. It's just kind of like new and awesome. Right there at Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowwood area. Go by and tell Ian Few that I said hello. Say, hey, Steve Robertson sent us down here. I want to thank you guys for being here in our neck of the woods. You'll be glad you did. A great quality meal at a great price. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. MEAT. And get it grilled or frilled. How about that? All right, so let's talk a little about women's hoops. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Mississippi State women's basketball has won 3 games in a row. Now, many people felt like, hey, the season is over. Rakia Jackson leaves the program, and we're not going to spend time discussing that. That's been beat to death, right? The story in the headline is the players that remain, that have done a great job, that are playing hard, and they've won 3 in a row. And we talked about it on Wednesday. We knew that Auburn would bring a great effort. We knew that Johnny Harris would bring a great effort. She would have the team ready to play, and they did. And it was a ball game for sure. It went down to the final minutes, and we had a big scare early in the ball game with Maya Taylor going down. I remember when Robbie Falk tweeted that out that she was down. It's like, oh, are you kidding me? It's like, what in the world are we going to do? We just lost Notae Carter for the year, and Maya Taylor, who is the heartbeat of this team, now she's down, but she comes right back and she plays. An outstanding effort. Mississippi State wins 70-65, and it's like you look at the scoring here. State has a 3-point lead after one, and then we give up a couple of those points. In the second quarter, we outscored 17-15, but you've got a small lead there at the half, and we come out the third quarter, and that's in women's basketball. The third quarter, more times than not, is the defining quarter. You come out, you make your halftime adjustments, and you attack based on what you learned in the first half. And State earns a 9-point advantage in that quarter, 26-17, which kind of set things up late. And Auburn hung in there for a little while late, but State finds a way to kind of get some separation and kind of overcome the late charge there. But again, a great ball game. Auburn, not a great team, but we know this was a priority game for Johnny Harris. A lot of people wanted her to be the head coach at Mississippi State. She's not. We, again, wish her the best. She's a fantastic person. We really do wish her the best. And it's probably going to take her a little time. Hopefully they'll be patient with her at Auburn. But now 9-12 overall and just 1-9 in the SEC. And then, of course, the win is Tennessee. You kidding me? State now 14-7 overall and 5-4 in the SEC. Let's run down the numbers here real quick. Anastasia Hayes goes all 40 minutes. 8 of 15 from the floor, 10 of 11 from the free throw line. And how big was that late? In a close ball game, incredible. 9 rebounds for her, 7 turnovers. That's got to get better. 26 points, and that's really kind of an aberration. She's not one that's kind of foolhardy with the basketball. Just had a tough night in that respect. But 26 points for Anastasia Hayes. And a lot of people wondered how good she was going to be when she got here. She's been outstanding. The 26 points leads all scorers. Jerkelia Jordan, again, rounding back into form, 36 minutes, shoots 50% from the floor. Also knocks down 4 out of 6 free throws, a couple threes in there as well. 18 points on the night for her. Maya Taylor, everybody loves her. How can you not love Maya Taylor? She is outstanding and could have gone anywhere in the country, chose to come here and be a part of our program. And rather than hit the portal, she has stayed and been true Maroon. I love her, and I think that she deserves to be, in many respects, held in the same regard as many of those players that were on those national championship runner-up teams. She has proven to be a true Bulldog. 30 minutes for her, and of course she got banged up a little bit, came back and played. Knocked down 1 3, 3 of 5 from the floor, 5 rebounds, 6 turnovers, 3 assists, and give Auburn some credit for forcing some turnovers. 8 points for her, and also a pair of steals. Charlotte Cole, 20 minutes of action, 2 points for her. And then Katarian Thompson, not nearly as prolific this time from 3. And that's the thing, too, is people have seen film now, and they're like, hey, we're not going to let her beat us. Ree, 0 of 2 from the floor, misses the only 3-point attempt. Didn't score a basket, but put in 29 minutes of effort. Didn't fill up the box score. And that's going to be, now that people have seen, hey, this is what they're going to do offensively, she's going to get a lot more attention. And we saw that last night. Aislinn Hayes pitches in 9 points. Ashley Jones, 5. And then Raven Farley with a basket. 20 minutes of action. Again, kind of rounding her back into shape. And so when you look at, how the ladies shot it, 51.1% from the floor. That'll usually get it done. When you're shooting, plus 50 women's basketball, you got a good chance to win a ball game. 53.8% from 3. 7 of 13 as a team. 7 of 13. Aislinn Hayes, 3 of 3. Outstanding effort there for her. Free throw shooting, 63%. Got to get a little better there. Got to be a little bit better there. On the Auburn side, we held them at just over 40% shooting. And they were 15.4% from beyond the arc, just 2 of 13. And they're 52%. So if you look at every single matrix on the offensive side, State's done well. What's incredible to me, though, is that Auburn out-rebounded Mississippi State, plus 5 for them, 39-34. We turned over 18 times. They turned over 14. So defensively, they got the better of us. We were better than them offensively, but defensively, they did a little bit better job. And it's the thing you look at, too, is like in many respects, and I don't say this in any way to be disrespectful of Johnny Harris, but this was kind of their Super Bowl. If they're bought into her and bought into the direction of their program, they wanted to go out and play well for her. And she is a person that inspires confidence. I mean, she's a great person. So they wanted to go out and get a win for their coach, and they really beat us up in the paint, 42 points to our 26. And then, points for turnovers is basically a wash for everybody. Second chance points, they get us there. Fast break points, they get us there. Bench points, we beat them by 2. But the reality of it is Mississippi State has won 3 in a row. When many of us kind of left them dead and buried, like, I don't know, it's going to work out here. Kind of looking back at this fourth quarter here, State got up by as many as 12 with just under 8 minutes to go, 58-46. And you think we're going to run away with it. But to give Auburn's credit, they hang in there. They hang in there, and they cut it to 5, just under 5 minutes to play, got it down to 3 after a honest Scott Grayson basket, 59-56. And from there, it got really interesting late. We're up 2, 61-59 at 2:41. And that's really as close as it got down the stretch. Then State, begins to kind of make their free throws and kind of put this game away. Big block by Raven Farley late in that thing too, that allowed Anastasia Hayes to pull down a rebound. That was when it was a 6-point ball game, and so every possession matters. So you get a defensive stop there, and then with 1:04 to play, Ashley Jones knocks down a pair of free throws to make it 67-60. That's almost an unsurmountable deficit to overcome. I guess we were up 8, actually, at 57. And then it swells to 10 with 30 seconds to go. Anastasia Hayes steps up and knocks down a pair. And they knock down a 3. Zaria Wiggins, a name that you guys should know, hits a 3. And, again, wish her the best, too. I don't harbor any ill will towards these players that leave. I just don't. I mean, I understand how life works, and it is a disappointment, to the program. You hate it. Because you get used to players and their skill set, and you begin to think, hey, this is a good thing for us. And then they move on, and you got to get familiar with somebody else. You got to bring somebody in. Continuity is what builds championships. Okay, so again, Bulldogs now 14-7, have won 3 in a row, 10-2 at home, and 3-4 away. That's interesting. I mean, right? Because we've had some road games that have not been good. We got shelled at Arkansas. We played pretty well at South Carolina. But we have proven to be a pretty tough out no matter who we play or where we play. And again, that's Doug Novak, and that's his staff. It'd been very easy to just mail this thing in and get your agent working for you and get another job. You absolutely could do that. He didn't. Mississippi State back in action next Thursday. No weekend game for the ladies. They'll get a chance to rest and kind of get their legs back under them. We're a little bit beat up. I mean, this will give a chance for Maya to kind of get some rehab and make sure she's good to go. Florida, 5:30 Thursday in Humphrey Coliseum, and 2 home games next week, of course. The big one, Ole Miss, in here next Sunday. That's a big game. And so we talked about this when we beat Missouri. I said, you got a chance to go on a run here and put some semblance of a season together. And now Mississippi State on the bubble of the women's NCAA tournament. If that happened, it would be absolutely remarkable. And again, some winnable games, but also some difficult games ahead of us. Looking at the SEC women's basketball standings, this is again, there's a lot of parity in the league once you get through the first 3 or 4 teams. And again, Ole Miss, their women are playing well. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They have taken some time and given Coach Yo the reign to do what she wants to do, and they're playing well. There's no other way to say it. I mean, anybody that would say otherwise is just being a homer. And contrary to popular belief, I'm not. I want to see Mississippi State do well, but I'm not blind to the truth. South Carolina, of course, still number 1, 9-1 in the conference and 21-1 overall. Their loss to Missouri, a team Mississippi State beat. Everybody's in for a bad night every now and again. Tennessee 8-2, 19-3. They lose last night to Florida, of all places. Ole Miss now tied for 3rd with LSU and Georgia at 6-3 in the league. Florida also right there with them, 6-3. So it's a 4-way tie for 3rd place. And then right behind them is Mississippi State. So we're right there in the meaty part of the curve, right? And we're on the positive side of this thing. The last team with a winning in-conference record. And so we're in the top half of the league. Missouri 5-5, Arkansas 4-5, Vanderbilt 3-6, Kentucky 2-6, A&M 2-7, Alabama 2-8, and Auburn there 1-9. And so you got a chance to get a pretty good seed in the SEC tournament. And we're not going to run through the schedule again. We've done that recently. But next week's a big week. It's a big week for Doug Novak and Mississippi State, women's basketball. There's no question about it. It's going to be a real opportunity. Going to be a real opportunity for us this next week to kind of prove if we're for real or not. If you get a split, I think you're kind of happy with that. But if you can find a way to win them both, I think that changes the trajectory of a lot of things with this season. And a lot of people continue to ask, hey, Steve, is Doug Novak a candidate? Yeah, I continue to hear that he's really not. But you begin to ask yourself, if he has interest in the job, because the team is clearly responding to him, maybe he gets an interview. And in many respects, it's kind of an audition for the job. I know that there are a lot of fans, because you guys message me and say, man, I wish Doug Novak was a candidate for the job. I don't know that he wants the job. He may. I don't know that. I really don't. But here's what I'll say, is we'll look back years from now, and Doug Novak and the ladies on that staff have done a tremendous job under some very difficult circumstances. And who would have thought here we'd be this late in the season after having some of the issues that we've had, injuries and some departures, and you're 14-7 and you've got a winning record in the league, and you're on a chance. You got a chance to get to the NCAA tournament. It's a pretty impressive job. And if nothing else, even if Doug Novak doesn't stay here, Doug Novak has helped, I think, his standing as an offensive-minded coach. And I hear he may go back to the men's side. We'll see how things progress. But the reality of it is we owe a debt of gratitude to Doug Novak, whether he gets a job or not. The guy has done an outstanding job, kind of helping right the ship a little bit. And I think it also shows to potential candidates out there that we've got, we still got a program, that it wasn't just Vic Schaefer, that we have, a fan base and an administration that is committed to women's basketball success. So hopefully that helps us because there is good culture here. There really is at Mississippi State. There are times that we get some bad actors in some sports, and eventually the culture itself kind of spits them out. It's just kind of how life works. But the reality of it is 3 in a row, and now 5-4 in the SEC. And so I share that with you because I'm both proud of the result, but I'm also proud of the effort. Because I just think to myself, how many people under those circumstances would have been like, it's just not our year. Let's go find another job. But they hadn't done that. So again, thank you to Doug and everybody involved with Mississippi State women's basketball. All right, let's thank our good friend Blair Chandler. Traded some messages with Blair yesterday. Blair apparently wants to have lunch with me soon, and I guess we'll do that. Blair's a good friend. Think a lot of Blair. And there's a reason for that, too. Blair is a guy that is a person of integrity. Blair's a guy that gets things done. We talk about running with the winners, and that's kind of what you do around Blair. Blair's a winner in his chosen profession. Guy's been in the mortgage industry for 21 years. Top 1% close ratio in the country, works for Fairway Mortgage, recently voted number 1 in customer satisfaction and mortgage lending. So you got the best guy with the best company, and it just happens to be Bulldog. So use that relationship to help yourself, because if you listen to this show and you mention to Blair, hey, I listened to you on the Boneyard. Steve Robertson talks about you on the Boneyard. I'm messaging you because of Steve. Well, then he's going to pay for your appraisal. That's about a $500 to $600 value. Visit him on the World Wide Web at closewithblair.com. That's C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R, closewithblair.com, and Blair gets taken care of. Maybe you're a person that's kind of got a little overextended when it's come to installment debt. Maybe the revolving debt of credit cards is kind of crushing you. You think, I'm never going to get this stuff paid off. Well, that's not true. If you're a homeowner, you can get your equity working for you. Much better interest rate on your debt. Consolidate that, lower your overall monthly payments, and give yourself a little breathing room month to month. Maybe you're looking to buy a home. Maybe you've had the dream of home ownership, but it's always remained elusive. Blair's a guy that can work with some atypical borrowers. A lot of people out there think, it's never going to work for me because my, John Q. Citizen Bank couldn't get my loan approved. Well, deal with a mortgage expert. Deal with somebody that maybe has seen it all and done it all, a guy like Blair Chandler. I'm going to give you Blair's phone number. You can visit him at the website, closewithblair.com, but also you can call or text him on his personal text line and phone number, 601-500-2344. Again, that's 601-500-2344. Time for today's top 10 list. I told you guys we're probably going to do some legendary rap today. We are. Got a lot of ideas. As a matter of fact, we've already got next week mapped out. I haven't shared that with Roy yet, but we have. Getting a lot of good lists lately. A lot of people said, hey, Steve, what about this? What about that? So, Rodney, this is for you. Appreciate this. This was actually sent to me weeks ago, and I recently kind of got on a clip of listening to this group, and I got a kid that's still at home with me, and he has very versatile music interest, and so I've turned him on to this band. And what's interesting too is my national championship speech and debate daughter, Mia Robertson. That's right. That's my daughter. Yeah, that's right. National champion, Mia Robertson. Out of the blue here a while back, she texted me. She said, "Why did you never tell me about the Wu-Tang Clan?" Well, you never asked. And so I turn my kids on to a lot of music, and I kind of give them the stories behind some of the songs and things that I know. And one of the things that I love about the Wu-Tang is, number one, Wu-Tang in and of itself, the name is great. It's very memorable. The logo is great. There's great branding. But they're really unlike other rap groups in the genre. There are a lot of people out there that are kind of silly. Now, this is the Wu-Tang tree. There's going to be some Wu-Tang Clan songs on this, and there's going to be like some solo performances from some of the members of the Wu-Tang Clan. And there are a lot of people that are kind of like Wu-Tang fans because they're kind of a cultural phenomenon. People are like, well, I see that everywhere. I don't listen to any of the songs, but I think it's cool. It's kind of like people are with Nirvana. It's like you couldn't tell me 3 Nirvana songs, but they're your favorite band. But whatever. Live your life. But here are my 10 favorite songs. And listen, I'm going to go ahead and give you the parental advisory here. This is a list that you may not want to listen to in front of your kids. Just letting you know. Full disclosure. So here's the top 10. And again, these are some solo stuff, but this is all in the Wu-Tang family. Number 10, I went with Ice Cream from Raekwon. And you guys are familiar with Raekwon. And that's the thing about the Wu-Tang Clan. There are so many people involved in this thing. I mean, it's like an army of people, of very talented people. And I think Raekwon sometimes is a little underappreciated. Number 9, it's Wu-Tang Forever. That's become a catchphrase in many respects. And, again, the thing about the Wu-Tang Clan is they weren't as irreverent as maybe some other people, but they spoke about things that really mattered in some respects. They're not necessarily like Public Enemy. They're not that politically conscious in many respects, but they talk about real-life stuff. And I think that's one of the reasons that people fully respect them is because there is some authenticity to what they do and say. Number 8 is Triumph. Song of empowerment in many respects. Number 7, one of our other solo songs is we're going ODB. I'm not going to say it because this is a family show, but it's Got Your Money. We could have gone Shimmy Shimmy Y'all, but I went with Got Your Money. That's the one I think everybody in some respects has probably sampled that a little bit. Everybody's talked about that one. And ODB is a little different. His delivery is a little different. But his antics are legendary. Number 6, The Mystery of Chess Boxing. That's a Wu-Tang Clan track. I think you'll enjoy that one. Number 5, and this is one that has kind of got a long introduction. And it's a little different. The beat's a little different. The track is a little different. It's a little unique, but it's Bring the Ruckus. I like that one a lot too. And that one's kind of an acquired taste. I mean, there's some songs you put on like right out of the gate. The track kind of gets you and pulls you in. This one's a little different. It's a little different. Number 4, some people believe this is the greatest Wu-Tang Clan song, and it may be. It may be. It's not number 1 for me. It's number 4. But it's Protect Your Neck. And I remember when this song dropped, it's like everybody would say that. It became like a catchphrase, and people had shirts, and people had bumper stickers. And, it's like all of a sudden it became this, this cultural thing where people are like, everybody talked about it. You got to protect your neck. Number 3, now I know that I'm going to get some emails about this because I mentioned this before when we talked about Redman. So Redman is not officially a member of the Wu-Tang Clan. And I guess as RZA said that, hey, Redman is kind of like the cousin of Wu-Tang. And so I'm including this song in the tree because Redman does a lot of feature spots with Method Man, does a lot of stuff with the Wu-Tang Clan. There's probably half a dozen or more songs that feature Redman. And so while he's not officially in the club, he is a member of the family. And so we're going Time for Some Action by Redman. And you remember if you watched Mike Tyson and his comeback, he used this song a lot as his walkout. So it'll sound familiar. Number 2, another Mike Tyson walkout. Method Man, in my estimation, is one of the greatest rappers alive and one of the greatest rappers of all time. He is unlike anybody else in many respects. His delivery, his vocabulary, his ability to enunciate and sometimes bend words and phrases to make them fit is legendary. I think he is an absolute genius. I love the smooth delivery. It's almost like he's sitting there, smoking a cigar, and like in between pulls, he's dropping a verse. I love Method Man, and I love when if people want me to listen to their stuff, and I see that it's featuring Method Man, I'm more likely to listen to it. I would venture to say, when you look at the totality of rap that began, and when I was a young man too, probably in middle school, in Run DMC and KRS-One and Curtis Blow and Sugar Hill Gang and people like that, when they first began to really get going, that's rap is still a relatively young art form. But I'll admit to you right now, there's just something different in my estimation about Method Man. I believe he is one of the greatest rappers of all time, one of the greatest lyricists, one of the greatest MCs, as we used to call them. And everything just seems to be in so control with him. And it's not how he says it, but what he says. He says it, and all of a sudden the words have power. And I went with Bring the Pain. Bring the Pain, which I think is the iconic Method Man song. Many of you may disagree, and you'd be wrong. I can't imagine there's anything better than Bring the Pain. I think it is just one of those songs that as soon as you hear that track, it's just mesmerizing. And then there's just this cool voice just dropping bombs on this track. And I love Method Man, and I don't know if you like rap at all, even if you're a young buck and like you're listening to these, studio gangsters of the day, you owe it to yourself to get into Method Man. You owe it to yourself because in many respects, it's kind of the history of the art form. Meth has been around forever, and Meth is a guy too that just is unlike anybody else. And I don't want to belabor the point, but I just wanted to drive that one home. Even though this is not the number one song, I don't think it'd be right to not have a Wu-Tang track number 1. I wanted to have Method Man in the highest possible regard today. Number 1, though, you probably already know it. It's Cream. Cash Rolls Everything Around Me, Dollar Dollar Bills, y'all. Legendary song. And it's what's so funny is like people have that's the thing that just kind of shows you the phenomenon of the Wu-Tang Clan. It's like they'll come up with an acronym, or they'll come up with a saying, or they'll come up with a little catchphrase, and then everybody used it. Other people in music begin to use it to kind of pay tribute to them. It's not that they're ripping them off. They're just saying, hey, listen, I'm down with the Wu-Tang too. But Cash Rolls Everything Around Me, and everybody talks about it nowadays. There's shirts, T-shirts, there's all this memorabilia and stuff like that because, again, it's just these guys are at a different level. There are a lot of people out there that can flow, a lot of people that can write. These guys can do it all. Incredible performers. I've never seen the Wu-Tang Clan in person. I hope to someday. I think it would be a phenomenal experience. Just to have the energy of that crowd, to be a part of that, and be in the same room, with these guys that I consider some of the lyrical geniuses of the art form, and it truly is. And it's a guy that enjoys poetry and enjoys writing those things. In many respects, they have modernized the poetry genre in many respects. And it's not just them, but just rap as an art form in and of itself. It really changed the game in many respects. And while many of you consider me, hey, Steve's a rocker, which is true, I like a lot of rap music too. I don't like a lot of modern rap, and I guess because I'm getting old. But anytime that I'm riding down the road and I put on Method Man, it's easy to feel like that I'm just able to kind of go on a journey. And there's this journey into sound and space and things like that, and the vibe behind the music is just so cool. And I kind of feel that same way about Cream too. And so be sure and check it out. Again, it's a little different deal, and we do get a lot of requests for some rap. People are like, hey, Steve, I'm a huge rap fan. I don't listen to a lot of rap music. I mean, I listen to that part of the show, but wish we did a little more rap. And I'll be honest with you, our numbers usually don't do really well on rap. But I don't care about the numbers today. I wanted to do this today to talk about the Wu-Tang Clan. They're just different, man. They're just different. They're, in many respects, they're like Public Enemy. They're like NWA. But they're not so over the top, I guess, with some of their political commentary. They're just one of those bands that everybody in the group provides something a little bit different. They complement each other really, really well. So if you're not into the Wu-Tang, you need to get down with the Wu-Tang. And, for those of you that are rock fans, Redman and Method Man actually featured on the Limp Bizkit track, the Rollin' Urban Assault Vehicle version. You can find that on iTunes and Spotify today. And I think that Method Man absolutely eats that track. Redman's pretty good too, but Meth is the dude. So there you go. If you have an idea for the top 10 list, reach out and let me know. We'll be glad to feature that on the show. Got a lot of great ideas. Matter of fact, like I said, next week is already kind of mapped out. Monday, we're going to kick it off with a modern rock band that I was really, really into in the early and mid-2000s that was recommended by my oldest son. He goes, hey, have you done this? Well, no, I haven't. And I could put together a top 10 list of those tracks very, very easily. So we're going to do that on Monday. So we'll get back to some modern rock on Monday. But you enjoy some Wu-Tang this weekend. And if you've always wondered, I've always heard about the Wu-Tang Clan, but I don't know where to start. Here's where you start. This is where you start. And then what you're going to find is like, hey, I really like that. And the next thing you know, you'll be listening to like the Wu-Tang Clan Essentials on Apple Music, and then you'll be down. You'll be glad you did. I'm telling you. There's a lot of people out there, like especially with modern rap, and I know that people are like, oh, Steve, you're just getting too old. You don't appreciate it. Like I'm not a J. Cole fan at all. I'm not. I like Logic. I think Logic is good. I can run through this because I've got kids that listen to a lot of rap, and so I'm exposed to a lot of this stuff. And I just think that, guys like Method Man are just in a different league than a lot of these younger rappers. I just do. I like some of the younger stuff. I don't like it as much. And I sure don't like it as much as I liked LL Cool J and Run DMC and Kool Moe Dee and Curtis Blow and Big Daddy Kane. All that stuff was a lot of fun. All right, let's go to the next segment of the show. We want to talk about some SEC news here as of late. This segment of the show brought to you by your friends at Campus Bookmart. Stan Man, Miss Kathy Brown, lovely, talented Susie. They're going to be with me tomorrow. I'll be there with them at Campus Bookmart signing books. Be sure and come out and be a part of that. You can find all the details on social media, but I'm going to be there all afternoon. And listen, here's the deal. As long as you guys are showing up and buying, I'm going to stay. It's not going to be a hard and fast deal. But if you're coming up there, or maybe perhaps you can't make it, but you can be around Sunday or Monday or whatever, maybe call up there and give a phone order, and I'll personalize it for you, and you just go by and pick it up. Save yourself the shipping charge. But also, too, you can order other stuff. Order your Mississippi State merch and order your book, too. How about that? Campus Bookmart has been great to me. It'll be great to you. These are great people doing a great job for a great fan base. The latest in Mississippi State merch available at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll save you some cash. Use promo code BSR. That stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. And that'll get you free shipping on all orders over $50. Any order less than $50, absolutely incomplete. Again, that's campusbookmart.net, promo code BSR. All right, so you guys may have seen the Jimbo Fisher stuff. Jimbo is all upset about, there was an article, I guess it was Bro Bible that wrote it. Not that I'm trying to give those guys clicks or whatever, but Jimbo mentioned them by name and talked about all this talk about, they were funding, some big slush fund, I guess, for recruiting. And Jimbo Fisher refutes that, is very, very angry. And I don't know that I blame him. If it's untrue, and he made a good point. Hey, Texas A&M is one of the greatest places in the country to go to school. You got, the Aggie Network. You've got all this other stuff. And it's like, and people sometimes talk about A&M kind of being cultish. It's a little different. And they are very much committed to themselves and to the university. And so it is not out of the realm of possibility to think that Texas A&M wouldn't devise a way to make the name, image, and likeness legislation work for them and then use that as part of the recruiting pitch. And it may be indirectly and not under the direction of the coaching staff, but that's not out of the realm of possibility. I don't think there's nobody that read that story or heard those comments that didn't think, oh, that's completely out of line. There's no way that's happening. And people are like, yeah, I could see Texas A&M doing this. And that's not to say they're doing anything that would be considered unscrupulous. I think the bottom line is that this is a very organized fan base that is very reliant on each other. And so I could very easily see them find a way to make this work for them. But Jimbo didn't really care for it. He said, hey, we don't have $30 million, we don't have $10 million, we don't have $5 million. And here's the thing, too. The name, image, and likeness deals are on record. It has to go through compliance and things like that, right? And so, we're dealing with some of that, too. As a matter of fact, I'm eventually going to do a name, image, and likeness deal with a current player to help promote the book, right? But here's the reality of it is like you have to go through compliance. Like you make the offer, the player then reports it, and if it's not properly reported, it can be considered an impermissible benefit. Does that make sense to you? So it's like, let's say, some realtor in, Bug Tussle, Mississippi wants to have an advertising campaign with Landon Sims. All right, well, they can do that. And so they make the offer. It is then reported to compliance. Steve Smith is the guy that handles that for Mississippi State. They go through and check everything else to make sure things are on the level, make sure that everything is correct, and that, so let's say Landon's eligibility is not impacted in any way, and that it has to be kind of a mutually beneficial relationship, and it has to be done at fair market value. Well, if all of a sudden you find out that some real estate agent in, say, Biloxi is doing something behind the scenes and funneling money to a player, well, now all of a sudden you've got an impermissible benefit issue. You've got an eligibility issue. And so there are these safeguards that are put in place to protect the student athletes and their eligibility. And so all of that is available for inspection by the NCAA whenever they want it. And there's already some name, image, and likeness investigations that are going on. It's still all relatively new. Now, you can make all the rules you want, and you're not going to be able to build a wall big enough to keep the cheaters inside. I mean, it's what makes them cheaters, right? I mean, the rules only apply to the law-abiding. So that's not to say that, and it's a story as old as time. There are boosters out there that are funneling money to players. You just got a vehicle now to do it legally, but it's also, too, you can't do it above fair market value. I mean, you couldn't come up and say, okay, we're going to give this guy $500,000 to do a social media posting for us. It doesn't work that way. People would like you to believe that, but it's not the case. Now, is that to say there's not a kid out there that's getting some money funneled to him on the back channel that's doing nothing? You're naive if you believe otherwise. But Jimbo, made mention of when Bryce Young, when it was reported that he had, $1 million in name, image, and likeness deals, and I don't believe that. I don't. He may get them now as a Heisman Trophy winner. I don't believe he had them then. The guy never even played a game. And so all of a sudden, when that was out there, like Jimbo says, well, that was okay, and people are like, hey, this is a great thing for the kid. Well, now that we're basically a year into this and we're through a recruiting cycle, people are like, wait, this isn't right. This isn't right. We've heard Lane Kiffin come out himself and say kids that are transferring are going to where they're going to get the most money. Now, while I don't agree with a lot of things Lane Kiffin says, he's right about this. He is right about this. Now, you'd say, well, Steve, but Ole Miss had a great transfer class. They did. I don't know if it was fueled by name, image, and likeness or not. I have no clue. None whatsoever. But I do know this, is that the state law in Mississippi, like it is in Alabama and some other places, was originally put in place to ensure that the NCAA could not prohibit players from profiting from their name, image, and likeness. I believe in many respects we have overstepped a little bit in the state legislature with the law, because we've made it basically where the universities cannot be involved with brokering the deal. Now, you can't use it as part of your recruiting pitch. You can't. But, of course, there's a little gray area with all that stuff, too, like everything else. But basically what could happen is, in the event that the law can be tweaked or repealed, and I continue to hear from people in power that's going to happen, that there will be some changes to the Mississippi name, image, and likeness legislation, that what would happen is that they could open the door for a university to say, okay, hey, listen, well, we can partner with our business partners, with our donors. There are people that are business people that contribute to Mississippi State that may have a lucrative opportunity for a student athlete. And so then all of a sudden, not only does it open up more opportunities, I think it gives greater control over the process, and I mean control in a positive way, to put in safeguards to ensure that we don't have student athletes that are being exploited. I shared with you guys too a while back. There was some shirts involving some college baseball stuff, and I think the kid got $2 a shirt. I mean, they're selling the shirt $20, and the kid gets $2. Guys, you can get a T-shirt printed if you print enough of them and get it made for $6 or $7, and then you sell it for $20. You're making $13, $14, and so then the company itself is keeping 12 and giving our player 2. It's not right. I mean, you're buying a shirt with our player's picture on the front because you want to support that player, and then you find out later that the deal is not set up in a way that he really profits the way that he should. And that's where I think university involvement could correct some of that. You would prevent players from being exploited for the financial gain of other people. And it's different in some respects. I mean, just like, say, for an example, everybody that works in the media uses images of players. I mean, you're at a public venue taking part in a public experience. And so, everybody in some respects has some retail with all that. But it's different when you do something specialized like a shirt, or when you do a poster. Those kind of things I think are a little bit different. And so I think that's one of the things where the university could be involved in some of that stuff. And so, Jimbo went out too and called some people, clown acts, and really never named Lane Kiffin by name, but certainly kind of led everybody that line of thinking. Of course, the Ole Miss people are like, oh, he's talking about Nick Saban. Stop. Nick Saban's not out there benefiting from the portal quite like Ole Miss is right now. And that was the plan. If you remember, you go head-to-head with Mississippi State on 5 players down the stretch in December, and you lose them all, and then the spin becomes, well, we'd always planned to go real big deep in the portal. Yeah, well, of course you did. Get used to it, right? And so they did. And you look at it on paper and you say, hey, they got a great transfer class. Obviously, Jackson Dart's come in, very, very talented player, and he played as a freshman last year, and I've read some of the stats. He didn't kill it last year, like some would have you say. But, listen, Matt Corral did a good job at Ole Miss, and maybe perhaps Jackson Dart will as well. I think it'll be very interesting without Jeff Lebby. But, Jimbo basically takes a shot at Lane without saying his name, and then goes as far as saying, hey, I know how some of you guys recruit out there. Maybe we need to dig into some of that. Jimbo, the DMs are open, man. If you've got information about anybody in the conference that's doing something they shouldn't, yeah. But all that's interesting. I mean, it's like, so now that this is part of the public conversation among coaches, what happens now with legislation involving name, image, and likeness on a national level? Because that's what we need. We need a national policy. I'm not saying that we need a national law, but the NCAA needs to find a way to regulate this where there is a more of a level playing field. I mean, it's like, say, for an example, like you look at the Mississippi schools, not that Ole Miss hadn't always found a way to get around this kind of stuff, but, Ole Miss can't legally be involved in brokering that deal. Whereas, say, for an example, if a kid wants to transfer to another state, and I can't, I'm just let's say South Dakota, that university could be involved. Not that the state or Ole Miss would ever lose a player to the University of South Dakota. But my point being is that it is not a situation where everybody can negotiate under the same terms. And that needs to be corrected. Now, what in the world's going on at Auburn? This has been a story that has been in the headlines now for about 18 hours or so. Brian Harsin, you may recall, was the hire, in many respects kind of considered by many to be a desperation hire after Auburn really struggled to find a replacement for Gus Malzahn. And now here we are now, just over a year later, and there is discussion publicly by even some people in the Auburn media that the Brian Harsin era may be coming to a rapid conclusion. Some articles are kind of beginning to make the rounds. I have went over to our good friends, our Auburn affiliate, over on the 247 Sports Network, and my friend Jason Caldwell works over there. I haven't reached out to him, but Philip Marshall has some comments over there just about kind of some things he's hearing behind the scenes, that there may be a coaching change on the Plains. It's absolutely insane to think about that. Austin Davis out of West Lauderdale High School, recently hired as the offensive coordinator at Auburn. I was in favor of the move. I love Austin Davis. I think he's great. Covered him when he was a high school prospect. Then he goes to Southern Miss and puts together one of the greatest seasons in Golden Eagle football history. Had a great career, a record-breaking career there. And now he's in the coaching circles, and he gets over there and he's not there anytime. Never even coaches a practice, he's gone. And so you begin to ask yourself, what's going on at Auburn? Did Austin walk into a situation and get over there and he's like, I don't have to do this. I don't have to do this. I can go get another job. You've had a ton of people come and go, and then Auburn has basically had more players leave the program than they have the ability to sign to replace them. Nearly 24 players in the transfer portal for Auburn. And a lot of these guys are dudes. Bo Nix grew up his entire life cheering for Auburn. His dad was a quarterback at Auburn. It's been his lifelong dream to be the quarterback at Auburn. He becomes the starting quarterback at Auburn, and then he leaves. If that doesn't send up a red flag, I don't know what does. You have a lifelong Auburn fan, an Auburn legacy, leave the program, who was the starting quarterback. Gets as far away from Auburn as he can get, goes to Oregon. What's happening? And then every day you turn around and it's a new player in the portal and a new player here. And it's like the bleeding never stops. And this isn't like in Mississippi State where, by and large, a lot of our guys, we hadn't had nearly as many go in the portal, but we've had, some. We needed some to go in the portal, not just for them, but for us. But a lot of the guys who have gone in the portal for us are really non-contributor, guys that are down the depth chart that just are seeking playing time. Now, we've lost some. Aaron Brule, obviously, is significant. Teddy Knox, I think, was going to be a player at Mississippi State. But Auburn's losing starting players. What is going on at Auburn? It's insane to think about what's happening right before our eyes. You think, okay, well, the coaching carousel is done. Now that Jim Harbaugh is not getting a job in the NFL, everything is done. It'll all settle in. Well, what happens now? Auburn makes a coaching change. Well, they'll have the run of the manor. They're not competing with anybody. There's going to be more dominoes fall. And there's some rumors of what if they go back and hire Kevin Steele. And you remember that was the big thing last year. Board of Trustees wanted to hire Kevin Steele, and the Auburn family revolted. So what happens here? It's incredible theater. And there's a lot of rumors out there. I'm not going to dignify those rumors because I don't know that that's true. But there's talk about things kind of away from football that are they're being discussed, and that there may be a possibility that they terminate a guy for cause. That's interesting too. All that stuff is interesting. I go back to the LSU thing, like when Ed Orgeron was there, and they had all the Title IX allegations, and he was mixed up in the middle of that discussion. And there were a lot of LSU people working behind the scenes to try to find a way to terminate Ed Orgeron for cause. Well, they didn't. They ended up giving him, $17, $18 million to walk away. Wins his final game against Texas A&M, ironically. Rides off into the sunset. Takes him and his girlfriend down to the beach. Never has to work again a day in his life. They couldn't get him. Or maybe they brokered a deal. Who knows? But this Brian Harsin situation is interesting too. The guy's been there no time. And there are people working behind the scenes to get him fired for cause. And so what does that mean? No clue. But it is something that we expect to play out here over the next few days. And even some Auburn insiders are thinking they will have some clarity after the weekend. There was a Board of Trustees meeting on Thursday, and I understand that is not atypical. There was not some emergency meeting plan, that they routinely have these meetings. But, what could happen when we begin to think about recruiting? Auburn might be facing kind of what Tennessee has gone through these last several years. Can you begin to imagine being an Auburn fan during the Nick Saban era? I mean, honestly. When every kid in your state, with rare exception, wants to go to Alabama, and the ones that are the swing votes want to go to Alabama, how difficult that would be. I mean, like State and Ole Miss, by and large, we usually split kids. We usually get, we'll get some, they'll get some. And there are some Ole Miss kids and there are some Mississippi State kids, and sometimes they make the wrong decision. But the reality of it is that what we deal with in Mississippi is nothing compared to what Auburn is dealing with. You're recruiting against one of the most historic runs in the history of college football in your own state. How do you ever get a kid that Alabama wants unless he grows up an Auburn fan? It's miserable to think about how that could be. And so what did they do? They started recruiting Mississippi a little bit more. They got a couple of kids here and there. Hadn't really amounted to much over there, but the reality of it is that that's what happens. And so you got to think you bring a new coach in from Auburn. Well, they're going to go take the fight to Alabama. They hadn't learned a lesson yet. Well, we're not scared of Alabama. We're going to go get Alabama. And then, St. Nick will discipline that person accordingly. But it's pretty phenomenal to think, what has happened at Auburn here in the last several years. I mean, Gus Malzahn was a guy that proved to be a really good coach at Auburn. I mean, was he elite? No, he wasn't. But he found a way to beat Alabama and Georgia just enough. And then the next year they'd go 8-4. He's a guy that a little bit interesting, a little bit eccentric at times, I guess. But as long as he was winning, people are willing to put up with it. And so, you go back and think, Auburn, when I was a kid, Auburn was one of those teams that you always had to look out for them. You had Bo Jackson, when Pat Dye was there, it was like Auburn was, consistently mentioned among the greatest teams in the country. Every single year. They were always involved. Always, always, always playing big games. And so the Alabama-Auburn rivalry, the Iron Bowl, was a national level game because those two teams were always playing for something significant, or at least it appeared to be. Pat Dye leaves, and they have some issues there, obviously. And then Terry Bowden takes over. People forget this in '93. Terry Bowden and Auburn were undefeated, 11-0. And you'd say, well, they inherited a great team. Guys, they were 5-6 and 5-5 the 2 years prior. They go 11-0. Then 9-1-1. So think about that for a second. First 22 games of the Terry Bowden era, they win 20. Things are going great, and then Bowden's gone. They won the Peach Bowl in '98 against Clemson. Seemed to be the best of times, and then Terry's gone. Bill Oliver takes over as the interim coach. And then you have the famous Pine Box moment with Tommy Tuberville. And you can go back and watch those videos of like the '98 Egg Bowl that we won and went to the SEC championship game. And Tuberville was like quoted by ESPN, hey, I'm going to leave here in the Pine Box. I'm not going to be the coach at Auburn. And then the next thing you know, he was. Tuberville comes in, struggles for a little while. They finally get it going, wins the SEC in 2004, won the Sugar Bowl, finished ranked number 2 in the country. Probably could have made a case to be number 1. That's the one, if you remember, Tommy Tuberville said, well, somebody will vote us number 1. I got a subscription to Golf Digest. And then Golf Digest put their issue out with Tuberville walking out the field and calling Auburn national champions. It's pretty funny if you can find a copy of that. And the next thing you know, things start falling apart. Tuberville's gone. They bring in Gene Chizik, and little did we know that it'd be Gene Chizik to win the national championship. Thanks to Cam Newton. They win the national championship. Cam leaves, a generational player. Then it's an 8-5 year. It's a 3-9 year. The Chiz era is over. Gus Malzahn comes back to Auburn. Very first season, takes that same group of kids that went 3-9, plays for a national championship. They lose. Florida State, finished number 2 in the country. And then Gus is 8-5, 7-6, 8-5, 10-4. They win the West that year. Lose a title game, lose a bowl game. It's crazy. The next thing you know, you're 8-5, 9-4, 6-5. And so, Gus Malzahn, under normal circumstances, might have been the dude at Auburn. The guy never really had that really awful season. I mean, you look back at his record, 2020, he goes 6-5 and then, beats Mississippi State and dances in the locker room and gets fired the next day. But the COVID year is the worst year of the Gus Malzahn era. And so he's gone. And so, part of the problem at Auburn, and I say this with as much respect as I can have, they have some donors that are too involved. You remember years ago when they were going to, make a coaching change, and was it Bobby Lauder, and then it had Bobby Petrino on a plane. It's insane to think about the things that have gone on at Auburn football, and now this is happening. And one of the reasons that a lot of people said they turned down the job, you hear this privately. There's always this kind of stuff that people talk about, and it's leaked by sources. Just that it's there is some issues within the Auburn family. There are too many people that are too involved with stuff that want access that they don't want to deal with that. You don't have that at Alabama anymore. You used to. now that St. Nick is up there running the show. But it's just incredible to me that this is unfolding right here. We just get through National Signing Day, and it almost makes you think. It almost makes you think there's something to this. It's like we wanted to get through National Signing Day, and then they don't sign anybody. They don't have a press conference. And then all of a sudden these rumors begin to bubble up that they're about to make a coaching change. And we'll see what happens. All right, final segment of the show. Brought to you by the folks at Portico. No recruiting stuff today. We're going to talk about some men's basketball. But here's the deal. Maybe you've always wanted to live in Starkville. Maybe at one time you lived in Starkville. Maybe you were a student here and said, one of these days I want to move my family back to Starkville. And I'll be honest with you, when I lived in Baton Rouge, I loved the fact that my kids had so many options. I loved the convenience of the big city. But when I moved to Starkville, I was glad they had the opportunity to experience all of this. The best of both worlds. I love being here. I know you guys do as well. A lot of great memories in Starkville. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of my favorite memories in Starkville don't involve ball games. They're just great people here. And I believe I would live here even if Mississippi State wasn't here. I love being here. It is a great community full of great citizens that'll do anything for you. I know John Cohen and I talked about this a while back about, moving to Starkville, and this is in Dogpile. He talks about this. It's like you learn to rely on people here in Starkville. There are people here that'll help you. There's the guy that'll fix your car. There's the lady that'll make your birthday cake. I mean, it's like there's all these people that you learn to rely on in Starkville. There is no place like it that I've ever lived. I love being here. And that's not to say we don't have some great communities around Mississippi. I just think Starkville's the best. So if you're thinking about, hey, I'd like to live there full time, or maybe perhaps you want a ball game weekend retreat, Portico is the way to go. Very easy to get to, off of 82 on a 12. Take the very first right. You pass that turn all the time going to campus. How about you take that turn to go home? It'd be outstanding. If I was moving to Starkville, I would move to Portico. Phase 1 completely sold out. Phase 2 now under construction. If you need information, and I'm sure you do, call our friend Brooks Bryant, former Diamond Dog, 601-416-8075. Brooks will get you lined up because you can start with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. Maybe you're looking to downsize. Maybe that's the way to go. Or maybe like, what, Steve, I want to have a 4-bedroom master plan so I have plenty of room for my family to move as my growing family begins to kind of migrate back to Starkville for ball game weekends. I want everybody to have a place to sleep and not have to worry with a hotel room. This is the way to go. Portico, a great place to live. You'll be glad that you're a resident of Portico. 1.1 miles from the Mississippi State campus. The convenient side of campus, over there by the neighborhood market. Not on the busy side of campus. Close enough for convenience, but quiet enough to have some privacy. What could be better? Make Portico your next move, and be sure and call Brooks, 601-416-8075. Again, 601-416-8075. How cool is that? I just received word, too. Dogpile books are in hand. The shipment has been completed. The books are here. So if you have pre-ordered a book, I will be signing it this weekend. It'll be mailed out first of the week. Be excited. Got some book signings this weekend, of course. I'll be at Book Mart and Cafe this afternoon from 3 to 6, and tomorrow from noon to 4 at Campus Book Mart. And then you can check social media. I'll be sharing these signings kind of as we go. Let me give you the recent schedule just so you guys, if you're in the neighborhood and you're thinking, hey, I'd like to be able to go by and see Steve and get a book and kind of be excited about life, and you certainly should be. We're going to do our best to help you with that. You can come see me, get your picture made, get a free hug. There's a free hug with every book if you desire that. So here's the deal. Here is the recent updates to the schedule. Just so you guys know, because I know a lot of you guys like to get out and come to this kind of stuff. And I love seeing you all too. And as I'm scrolling through my Facebook feed, I got all this stuff here. All these people, they're like, hey, here's what's going on. So 3 to 6 today, Book Mart and Cafe, downtown Starkville. Tomorrow, Saturday, February 5th, 12 to 4, Campus Book Mart. Wednesday, February 9th, I will be in Meridian, Mississippi from 2:30 to 5 at the Bulldog shop. That's downtown. Thursday, February 10th, I'm at the Starkville Library from noon to 1. And then that evening, sponsored by Turnrow Books. We were going to be at Turnrow, but they've already had so much interest. This is being moved to the Alluvion. It's going to be kind of the happy hour thing, 5 to 7, 7:30-ish. I'll be there as long as you guys are wanting to talk and visit and sign books. Next Friday, February 11th, from 3 to 6, I'll be at Maroon & Company. And then next Saturday, a lot of requests. Steve, when are you going to be in the Jackson area? Well, next Saturday, a week from tomorrow, I'll be at Lemuria Books from noon to 2. They usually do 1-hour signings. They're doing a 2-hour signing because of the demand. And then that evening, I will be at Persnickety in Madison from 3 to 5. And people say, well, Steve, are you coming south? Yes, eventually. And I will share those dates with you. I think it's important that we kind of keep all that, apprised, as you guys kind of know what's going on. I will be in Columbus, Mississippi for the first time at Friendly City Books. Matter of fact, they're going to start stocking the books starting this weekend. They'll have all 5 books there at Friendly City Books. That's a relatively new bookstore. I will be with them Thursday, February 24th, the very first signing I've ever had. And that's going to be from 2 to 4 in Columbus. That's next Thursday. And so we got some Tupelo stuff coming up. Got a lot of other things that are happening. And so as those things are announced, you can check my social media feeds. And, we'll have all that together. The Starkville event, too, at the library, rather interesting. I've done that a couple times. They'll set up a Zoom call, and we'll visit and talk and answer some questions. If you want to come by and check it out, they're going to also provide refreshments. And anytime that you can get free refreshments, that's a great thing. Okay, let's talk a little about men's basketball. I remain convinced that this is an NCAA tournament team. We have the talent to make the NCAA tournament. And there's a lot of parity in the SEC, so there are some games that I believe that we can pick off. We probably are going to have to win a game or two. We're not expected to win. And I say that not because we don't have a talent, but it's because at times that we have been a little bit inconsistent. And so there are some times, we're probably going to have a hiccup here or there. We take care of business against South Carolina, 78-64. Arguably Mississippi State's best performance of the year. We coasted a little bit down the stretch. You win that game 78-64, but at no point did South Carolina ever feel like they were in the game. Now this Saturday we're going to beat Arkansas. It's a big ball game for us in a lot of respects. We beat them earlier in the year. And they didn't have their leading scorer. And you know what? At the end of the day, they don't put an asterisk next to that anywhere. It's a W. So we're going to have to find a way to try to pick up a win this weekend. We talk about winning a game that maybe perhaps people were expecting us not to. This could be one of those. And we're going to have to play very well in Bud Walton Arena. The Arkansas Razorbacks, 17-5 overall, 6-3 in the league. They've won 7 in a row. This is a team with a lot of momentum. And the fact that they lost to us already, they're going to be motivated and ready to go. And they should be. This Arkansas team is very, very talented. We beat them 81-68 back in Starkville in the SEC opener for both teams. Since then, they lose to Vanderbilt the next game, and then they lose to A&M, 86-81. So they get off to an 0-3 start. And here's the thing, too, for better or for worse, Arkansas is a program that expects to win in men's basketball, and maybe it's because of those great 90s teams with Scotty Thurman and Corliss Williamson, but they expect to be a great basketball program. They hadn't always been, but they've always been really good. Well, since opening up 0-3 in the conference, they're undefeated. They rout Mizzou 87-43. They go to Baton Rouge in the PMAC and beat number 12 LSU 65-58, and of course Tigers kind of fallen on a hard time since then. South Carolina, they beat them in Arkansas 75-59. They host A&M, who has been kind of an upstart this year. A lot of people were expecting them to be kind of middle of the pack. They got off to a great start. It's been a little bit rougher as of late. And they win that ball game 76-73 in overtime. They go to Oxford, and they beat Ole Miss 64-55, and this Ole Miss team is really weird. They're kind of like Alabama. You never know who's going to show up. And then Arkansas beats West Virginia and Bud Walton in the SEC Big 12 Challenge 77-68. They go to Georgia earlier this week and absolutely dismantled the Georgia Bulldogs 99-73. So this is a team that is probably playing its best basketball of the year. So we're going to have to bring an incredible effort to make this thing happen for us. And, again, looking at the numbers, and a lot has changed, since we saw those guys. And, again, we didn't see them, with Notae. So let's take a quick look at kind of what's happening for these guys now. It's interesting to say the least. So J.D. Notae, 21 games played, 20 starts, averaging 33.1 minutes a game. This guy's getting it done. 19 points per game. That 19 points made a big difference, when he was absent. Tony, and I'm going to butcher this name. I apologize. I think it's Odiasi or Odiesi. 11 points per game for him. Another regular starter now, averaging over 30 minutes per contest. Also 17 steals on the year and 8 blocks. Stanley Umdu, the way this is set up, I'm wrong about that, I know. Averaging just under 11 points. He is the final double-digit scorer for the team. Chris Likes is the guy that's the first guy off the bench. Started just 2 games, played in 22, averaging 9.4 points per ball game. Jalen Williams right there with him, the same numbers, but he is a guy that has started 20 games, 29.5 minutes of action for him. When you look at this Arkansas team, they're extremely athletic. If you had a chance to watch them, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They will get out and run a little bit. You make a mistake, they're going to put it in the basket very, very quickly. They're a team that plays a little more up-tempo than maybe perhaps that we're used to seeing. Averaging 15.3 assists per ball game, so they share the basketball pretty well. Rebounding, they're +6, 38.4, giving up 32.3 on the season. Right at 31% three-point shooting, and of course, that's the real threat at times with J.D. Notae. He's a 31.6% free throw shooter himself. Really good from the floor, but is a guy obviously that can hit you from deep or drive right by you. Rebounding, and that's what happens when you've got 5 athletes on the floor, is it becomes really much a team effort in many respects. Notae is a guy that gets it done on the glass as well. 85 defensive rebounds, 96 total. The top offensive rebounder for them is Tony, 51 offensive rebounds for 117. But the leading rebounder is Jalen Williams, 201 total rebounds, and most of those on the defensive end. So you got to shoot it well against Arkansas because they will get on the glass. As a team, 600 rebounds as a team. Averaging 79.3 points a game, giving up just under 69 points. And I don't know that we win a game in the 70s. I think in order to win this game, maybe we got to keep it in the 60s. But we'll see. We have some games offensively where we will get after you, but we'll see kind of how things progress. A lot of people have pitched it up from the outside against Arkansas, shooting it pretty well, I guess, at times against them. Actually, opponents are shooting better from three-point line than Arkansas is, right at 34%. Free throws, that's been a bit of an issue for some teams. Arkansas as a team right there at 75%. So if they get to the lane and they don't finish, they get to the line, they're still going to make you pay there. So that's one of those things you kind of look at as well, and you begin to wonder. Turnovers, right? They force a lot of turnovers. Arkansas plus 2.3 in the turnover ratio. 13 turnovers committed by Arkansas, 15.4 by their opponents. Steals-wise, they're a plus 1.1 there, 180 steals as a team. They've allowed 157. Blocks, about the same, 4.4 blocks per contest. They allow 3. That's where I think Garrison Brooks and those guys have to get up and really contend and change shots. Now, so what does this mean for Tolu Smith? Now, basically, the back channel chatter suggests that he's not going to play tomorrow. We were told he was week to week. He has that sublux patella. And we've talked about what that means. Basically, it was a dislocated patella. This kneecap got a little bit out of place in the final minutes of the Ole Miss game. And so he didn't play last week, and he hadn't played so far this week. I don't know that we expect him to play on Saturday. Would we win the game with him? If he's healthy, there's a good chance that happens. Without him, I think it's going to be tough. We've taken some good teams to Bud Walton Arena over the years and come home with a loss. But Ben Howland has actually had the team played pretty well over the years against Arkansas. Not exactly sure why he seems to have their number, but we generally bring a good effort against the University of Arkansas. Now, the next home game for the men is Wednesday, and this is a huge game. It's going to be an ESPN2 game against Tennessee. That's an opportunity for State to pick up kind of a marquee win. This next 4 games, in many respects, is going to define our season. And 3 of those 4 are on the road. And so the opportunity for State to pick up a signature win It's right in front of us. If you win at Bud Walton, that's a win that gets some attention. You beat Tennessee, that's a win that gets some attention. You go down and beat LSU, it may not mean what it meant earlier in the year, but it's still a big win. That's a hostile environment for us. And, Ole Miss went down there and proved it could be done. And then we go to Alabama. And so we talk about defining stretches. This is perhaps the stretch in the season that will determine if we are an NCAA tournament or not. There are no gimmies in this quartet of games. You find a way to split these four, I think you can feel really good about State's prospects of making the NCAA tournament, because the rest of the schedule is pretty, kind of favors you till you get to the final week. Once we get through this 4-game stretch, we're going to play a home and home with Missouri. Those are 2 games that we should win. Then we'll go to South Carolina. We'll host Vanderbilt. I think State should be no worse than 3-1 in that stretch. You could be 4-0, and that's what makes this stretch all the more important. You pick up a couple of wins here, and let's say you go, 6-2 of that 8. All of a sudden, that game against Auburn doesn't mean quite as much, and then you've got to go to A&M, which is a difficult place to go play. But the way that State has proven to be a difficult out on the road, that's a winnable ball game. And so, while State may not be favored in a lot of these games down the stretch, there's still some winnable games. But if we're going to really legitimize ourselves as an NCAA tournament team, we've got to find a way to win a couple of games here in the next couple of weeks. We've got to find a way to make that happen. And these are quad 1 opportunities. These are the ways to kind of pad your postseason resume. Mississippi State needs some of that. We have won a lot of games that we were expected to win. We've lost a couple of games that we should have won. But the reality of it is we still have opportunities in front of us to make this a pretty special season. I do think if Mississippi State gets in a tournament, that we're not a team that people are going to want to see. I think we've got to prove that, though, here over the next few weeks. And I think that this team is capable of doing it. And it all starts tomorrow. That's a 7:30 p.m. tip. So we'll go out and sign books, and we'll come home and we'll root for the Bulldogs to take down the Razorbacks. So a lot of people have wondered, well, what happens? Do we have to make the tournament? We absolutely have to make the tournament. We probably need to win a game or two in a tournament to really consider this season a success. But that's why we play the games. And as many times as I've said on this show, there are a lot of times that Ben Howland appears to coach his best basketball when our backs are against the wall. I don't know that we're quite there yet, but I think if we go through this stretch right here, we're going to probably be an NIT team if we don't find a way to win a couple ball games. I think worst case scenario, you got to pick off one of these. I think best case scenario is you get 2. You get 2, and you can feel good about life. And I think Tennessee coming here, that's a potential win. And going to LSU is a potential win. Going to Alabama, even though we have at times played them pretty well, the matchup hasn't favored us, especially in Tuscaloosa. So we'll see how things progress, obviously. But the first step in a defining stretch in the Mississippi State men's basketball season will take place tomorrow, and likely without Tolu Smith. All right, listen, I'm going to get out of here. If you guys are looking for books, they're no longer pre-orders. They're actual orders. You go to dogpilethebook.com, and you can get Flim Flam, Alpha Dogs, Stark Villains, and Dogpile right there. We've been pre-selling it for months. It's a real thing now. Matter of fact, when I leave you guys, I'm going to post this show, and I'm going to go lay my hands on that book for the first time in my life, and it's going to be a very special moment. I'll do my best not to cry. I promise you. I'll do my best. It means a lot to me because I know it means a lot to you. And again, I just feel so honored to be in the position to be able to help tell the Mississippi State story. If you're looking for Stark Villains gear, go to starkvillains.com. You can get T-shirts, hoodies, in an assortment of colors and styles. And very, very grateful for our partners and make that possible for all of you. Well, that's going to do it for today. This time next week, hopefully, we're celebrating a big win or two in men's basketball. And we'll see what happens with the ladies. I mean, I think next week could be kind of a defining stretch for them, too. You find a way to win those 2 ball games, all of a sudden you start feeling like, hey, we're going to have postseason basketball on both sides. You beat Florida and you lose to Ole Miss. I think you keep the possibility alive, but the reality of it is if you can stay hot, then you can be hot. All right, until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.
MeUndies knows relationships aren't perfect. That's why they're celebrating imperfectly perfect matches with their new Valentine's Day collection. Right now, new customers get 25% off matching pairs. Match your bottom half to your better half in fun, limited edition prints. Check out all of MeUndies' sustainably soft undies, socks, bralettes, loungewear, and more, available in sizes extra small to 4XL. Get 25% off your first order of matching pairs, plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/VDay25.